So I'd like to start off by saying that this is a spiritual and witchy channel as well as an art channel. So I'm going to be talking about like the spiritual aspects of stuff. And if you don't believe in that stuff, then scroll on by. Don't even bother. Because I'm going to talk about that aspect. And I most certainly am not going to tolerate having my experiences with that being dismissed by people. When I talk about my experience in Japan, I'm not just talking about the aesthetic there. Yes, there was an aesthetic aspect. The fact that mostly kept the streets pretty clean. There were still some parts where there was litter and graffiti. Looking at you, Tokyo. I still remember when we were at the Katsura River and it was like all nice, and then there was like a piece of garbage floating along, and I'm like, really? But at least it wasn't in abundance. And as for like the buildings, a lot of them were actually pretty boxy and gray. Very plain, actually. A lot of the apartment buildings were actually fairly plain looking. And it was weird to me because when I was there, it was like I didn't feel like the veil was super thick even around that stuff. I still felt connected with nature spirits. I still felt connected with Kami-sama. I didn't get a weird sense of like dread and disconnect like I have here in Central Phoenix. I do subscribe to Feng Shui. Yes, there is a flow because of the infrastructure and traffic and the consideration for people that are trying to get to work, etc. And I feel like, yeah, that all definitely helps. And the lighting. A lot of their lights were like nice and warm. In comparison with here, we've had like white, bright LED street lights. Some of them have turned like purple or blue. And then here we have these buildings, these new apartments that keep popping up, and I've talked a lot about them on this channel, but they're the 5/1 architecture. That's what they're called. I hate them. There's just something about them that when I'm near them, I just and then there's like all these pretentious names given to them, like the Art and Halogen and Muse and the Escape. Those are real names of apartments in this city. And they're built with cheap materials and they charge out the butt for rent. So like, even though they seem like they're trying to appeal to Gen Z and millennials who are always on their phones, because that's what these buildings look like. They kind of look like inside of a cell phone or inside of a computer, but like nobody can afford them. And there's just something about the way they flow that feels off. And I can't help but feel that every time I'm around them. And it's more than them just being ugly. Not all of them are necessarily ugly. There's just something about them that just like, even when they're not completely hideous, there's still something about them that feels like bleached, sterilized. It's hard to explain it. So it just kind of goes to show that not all of my feelings were because everything is so pretty. Because not all the parts of like Tokyo or where we were at were pretty. Not all the parts of like Kyoto were pretty. Some of it was plain looking. But it didn't give me the weird sense of dread that I get when I'm around like these new buildings for some reason. And like I said, I do subscribe to Feng Shui, so maybe there's something to that. Maybe it's all the sharp angles. Maybe it's because we're not supposed to live inside of a damn computer. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about that. There's so much more that I could probably speak about this, but I mostly like wanted to talk about, like in my last video, of like, I just felt connected to things there, and I just wanted to share that. And if people want to get on my case about, oh, World War II and the dark side and social repression, like, okay, that didn't change the fact that I'm like, I still felt these things and I wanted to share about it. Versus coming back here, back to a place where it's just like, yeah, the veil is like a brick wall here. Though out in Glendale, it's not so bad. It's mostly Central Phoenix. But I've also like wanted to take things that I learned while I was there. Like, what can I do to make things a little bit better here? Simple things like maybe we should start picking up our trash. and see the difference that that makes. Take a trash bag, some hand sanitizer, walk down your street, start picking up trash. Get a group of friends together on a Saturday and say, hey, let's do some community service. I think it just kind of goes to show that when we do care about other people and when we care about community, we open doors. I'm not saying we need to be like Japan where there's all the emotional suppression or the terrible work culture, but I'm like, maybe we could learn something